Hey, what's going on, guys? It's BrainBean here again, back with another keyboard video for you. Now today we're taking a look at a keyboard that's actually still in its pre-production phases. Now you can find this on Indiegogo and I'll leave a link down below for you. Today we're looking at the Hexgears Venture. It's a low-profile wireless mechanical keyboard that's just finishing up that pre-production phase, getting ready to actually move into production. So with that in mind, some of the stuff you're going to see in this video, there might be minor tweaks or changes to the finished product. And also to let you guys know, Hexgears gave me an extra one of these keyboards to give away to one of you guys as well. And I'll have all the details on that at the end of the video. But for now, let's check out the Hexgears Venture. So starting as always with construction and design, the Hexgears Venture, like I mentioned, is a low-profile wireless mechanical keyboard. And the board is available in two different flavors. They have it in a silver finish and they'll also have it in an all-black finish. Now the actual top plate of the board is made out of a machined aluminum, and I like that it has a matte finish to it, which not only serves to be cosmetically appealing, but also is functional because you're going to be transporting this board around, and with it just being wireless, you know, this is something that's meant to be handled and moved around. And so if it didn't have that matte finish, it might accumulate a ton of fingerprints and look ugly. So I think that was a good choice there. Now the underside of the board is made out of a plastic casing, which Hexgears says is more just to facilitate the Bluetooth signal coming in and out of the keyboard. And I like that plastic casing, while this is meant to be a low profile keyboard, a lot of times you see people try to make the slimmest low profile board possible. And because of that, they don't really have a good angle to the keyboard. And one thing I really like about the Venture is that they do still have a little bit of angle built into that plastic casing. And they also include extendable legs, which this is the first keyboard that's low profile that I've seen give you the ability to have extendable legs, which is another big plus for me. Now, even though the board is ultra slim and it is a pretty lightweight keyboard, I was pretty impressed with just how sturdy the board felt. And even really cranking down on the keys, there's very minimal flex on the board, which is something I don't typically see in low profile keyboards. And now aesthetically looking at the keyboard, it's got pretty nice clean lines to it, and I like that there's a very slim bezel on three sides of the keyboard. Now at the top there are some dedicated buttons, which kind of goes hand in hand with a wireless keyboard, as there's going to be a couple of different dedicated functions that are kind of unique to wireless keyboards. So I can kind of give it a pass on having a little bit of void space at the top of the keyboard, but overall aesthetically it's very clean. There's not a bunch of branding all over the keyboard or anything like that. So it's a nice minimalistic looking low profile keyboard. Now I'm sure by now you guys have noticed that the board does come with a full circumferential RGB light bar. And the cool thing about this is that it can be changed independently from the actual lighting on the keyboard. Now to get more specifically with the RGB lighting on this keyboard, it does have full per key RGB lighting, but it's important to note that it doesn't use any type of software to customize the lights. So this does mean that you're going to be limited to all the presets that are built into the keyboard, much like we saw with the Hexgears Impulse. Now I reached out to Hexgears and asked why they didn't have a companion software to fully customize this or something like that. And the main reason, which makes a lot of sense to me now that they've kind of explained it, is that because this board can be paired with multiple devices, they wanted to be able to have your experience consistent on the board between all different platforms. And so being able to keep everything directly on the keyboard makes a lot of sense, because then your lights don't have to be controlled by whatever device you're synced up to. Now, the lights can be controlled independently, so there are different presets for the RGB ring under the keyboard and the actual lights on the keyboard itself. There's two dedicated buttons up at the top of the keyboard, and so you can mix and match and come up with a profile that's right for you. And now speaking of profiles, and like I kind of touched on earlier, this board does use Bluetooth wireless, and so you can connect it to 4 different devices at a time, and you can seamlessly change through that with the dedicated buttons to swap it around. So if you have it set up to be, you know, controlling a media center, and then you also have it for, say, your iPad or your laptop or different things like that, you can seamlessly switch through different workflows to be able to pair it to different devices on the fly. Now there's going to be a little bit of difference in performance depending on when you're using it in wireless mode or wired mode. For example, if you're using it on Bluetooth, you're only going to be able to get 6 key rollover. And then on the flip side of that, if you plug it in with the included USB-C cable, then you can have full N key rollover and 1000 Hertz polling rate. Now, of course, with any wireless keyboard, a big factor here is going to be battery life and how those batteries actually work. And this is probably my favorite part about the Hexgears Venture because they have a pretty cool approach to it that I haven't seen before. So basically what it is they include a set of 2 rechargeable AA batteries with the keyboard. Now you can plug this in with the included USB-C cable and recharge the keyboard just like you would with a dedicated non-removable battery, or if you find yourself on the go and you don't have somewhere where you can plug it in, you can actually remove those batteries and just put in some disposable AA's and then pop the reusable ones back in when you have a place to charge it. And I think this is really cool because it makes the keyboard very versatile, and you're not going to find yourself in a situation where you need to have a power pack to charge it up or something like that. It gives you the best of both worlds. Now, talking about how long the batteries actually last, of course there's some factors there, the most important one just being the RGB lighting. Now when you have the RGB lighting on, you can expect to use the keyboard for about 16 hours straight on a single charge. But if you wanted to use it something more realistically, like for production, or you keep it in a laptop bag or something like that, if you have the RGB lights turned off and you just use it for 2 or 3 hours at a time, you can expect the keyboard to last for about 4 weeks, which is a really long time on a single charge, and it'll make it ideal for taking it on the go for work and stuff like that, where you don't have to sit there and always plug the thing in. The switches in this board are Kaihua Chalk low profile switches, and so these are going to be available in all 3 varieties, which is the clicky white, the tactile brown, or the linear red, which is great because I love it when companies give you the option to have whichever switch type appeals to you most on the keyboard. And as far as the typing experience goes on these Kaihua Chalk switches, it's a really nice rock solid feel thanks to those low profile switches with that sort of rectangular design to the stem makes so that there's pretty much no key wobble there at all. And as you guys can see, I've got the white clicky variety, and I was surprised to see that the click on these switches is actually a really nice crisp click that gives you some good tactile response, and the sound of the click, as you guys will hear in just a second, sounds really good as well. So overall, very surprised and happy with the feeling of these low profile switches. The keycaps on the Venture are ABS low profile keycaps. Now typically from them I like to see PBT keycaps, and that's usually sort of one of Hexgears' things, is that they always try to include, you know, the top quality materials on all their boards. I think the main reason here is just because they are low profile keys. You don't really see low profile PBT keycaps out there, so I can kind of give them a pass for that. The keycaps themselves though feel really great. I like that they have sort of a contoured feel to them, which makes them very comfortable. And of course the font is nice and clean and simple, and the characters are well permeated by the lighting, so it really accentuates and makes the characters look full. And of course all the secondary characters are nicely illuminated as well, which is always a big plus for me. Now in terms of extras, like I mentioned, there are some included dedicated buttons up top. You've got buttons for switching between Bluetooth profiles, you've got a Windows lock button, a button for turning on and off the RGB lights, as well as 2 dedicated buttons for changing the lights under the keyboard and the lights on the keyboard itself, as well as a key lock button so that if you're carrying the board around or you set it off the side of the couch or something like that, you don't have to worry about the keys getting pressed and messing up what you're doing. In addition to all this, with the function key, you do have media controls. You can record custom macros and alter the lighting presets a little bit too. So overall, for $129, there is a lot to like about the Hexgears Venture. It's not very often that you find a wireless mechanical keyboard that doesn't really have any compromises, and there's a lot of different things they did with this keyboard, like the way they handled the rechargeable batteries, or having a bunch of different RGB light options directly on a wireless keyboard is not something you typically see that often. Now, of course, it is my job to nitpick, and if I had to change a couple of things, my only real gripes would be that there's just no ability to use any software to really fully configure the lights exactly the way you would want them. Now, I understand why they did this, as we talked about that a little bit earlier in the video, but still, it's my job to get really nitpicky. And the only other thing would be just the lack of PBT keycaps, which has kind of been Hexgears' thing. Now again, I understand with the low profile keyboard you're not really going to see that, but again, this is just my wish list for the board. Other than that though, it's super aesthetically pleasing, the build quality is top notch, and overall I think if you guys are looking for a wireless mechanical keyboard, this one is exceptional and is definitely worth taking a look at. Well, that's it for the review, guys. Like I mentioned, I am going to be giving one of these away to one of my subscribers. Now, all you have to do to be eligible to win that keyboard is 1, make sure you're subscribed. 2, you can give this video a like to show your support. And 3, just leave me a comment down below letting me know what you think about the Hexgears Venture. I'll be announcing it on my Twitter at BrainBeanGaming, so make sure you follow me over there so you don't miss out on the announcement. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.